Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
Well, we're doing good.
I feel like because we had a lot of different things going on, and you had your run you were going on. We batched an episode, so I feel like we've been out of the loop of things for about a week or so.
It's been a couple of weeks now.
So how many blisters do you have?
Well, I'm going to tell you, that was my first ever marathon.
Marathon.
Yeah, it's full 26.2 miles. For the longest time, I would say I would never had a desire to run 26.2 miles. But
you've done it. You've actually done it.
I did it. I said I'm going to give myself 5 hours, and I finished it in about 5 hours. I think it was like 5:05 or something like that.
Hey,
So,
and you did not come in last.
I did not come in last.
So there
well,
we go.
Tell you, it's so funny. I was running, and they have some incredible runners out there. And in our pre-show time, I was talking about having the opportunity to see the lead runner because of the way how the course worked out.
So you were that fast you could see the lead runner? That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work out that way.
Oh, that's not that. No,
but
that way. Okay.
the course basically started us on one side of the river in downtown Little Rock, and then it took us over the Arkansas River, I believe, and then there's another little portion over there on the other side. Then they sent you back. Mm-hmm. So on your way back, right about the midpoint of the bridge, it was mile 3.
So at one time you're running this way, and the other runners are coming next to you.
Correct.
Okay.
So you have an opportunity to see the lead runner because you see the pace car, the lead car that's in the front of the first runner. And I hadn't reached mile 1, and that person was already at mile 3. So I kind of looked at the overall winners, and it appears that the lead, whoever won, I believe it would have been him, unless another person overtook him. But that person was maintaining a pace of about 5:44 a mile.
So if he was 5:43 at roughly 3 miles, that means you were 10 to 11 minutes per mile going into your first mile?
Into the first mile. So
wow.
I think
that's still impressive.
Right. I think the course rules were you had to maintain a pace of 13:44 to finish the race in 6 hours because you had to finish the race in 6 hours. Yeah. And if you maintain that, then you would. So there was times I was pretty consistent up to about the half marathon mark, which was typical. But by the time you started getting into about mile 15 for me, it's when I really started feeling it.
Yikes.
And I started walking a lot because it started getting a bit hilly, a little bit more hilly on the back end of the course than it was in the beginning. But we managed to find it, managed to finish it. And as I said, I never was really tired, but my body was hurting. And the pounding on my ankles and my quads and my back. And, just at my age, it just was, I felt it. And it's so funny. I was probably around mile 17, 18, I passed by because I didn't realize this, but Little Rock is home to the World Taekwondo Association.
Yeah.
And I passed by the building because it was on the course.
And you were like, this is a good time to take up Taekwondo.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
Race, I'm done.
Exactly. So it was a neat building. I didn't realize that Little Rock was home, and they have international competitions there in Little Rock, Arkansas. So
I did Taekwondo for probably 5 or 6 years, I think, when I was younger.
So that was neat to see that. And but I about that time I see 2 older guys that are running.
Yeah.
And these guys are probably in their mid-70s.
Wow.
No.
And they're running a full marathon. And they were just had a nice little clip, and they were just taking their time and doing their thing. And I went, you know what? If they can do it at that age, I can do it in where I'm at. So it provides some motivation. But about mile 24, then all of a sudden
that was wearing off.
It was wearing off. I was getting like, I'm hurting. So I just hoping my body holds up. But I was able to get through, and my girlfriend took pictures of videos of me as I was passing because she called me. You know, we talk every now and then.
Right,
she goes, well, where you at? And I went, because she was kind of following me on the tracking, because we shared a deal. I said, well, I think I'm at mile 15 right now. And then she called me again, and she goes, well, where you at? I said, well, I think I'm on mile 23. She goes, mile 23? So I want to see you cross the finish line. I said, yeah. So she got there.
Wow.
And was able to film me crossing the finish line. So it was fun. It was a great trip. Accomplished what I wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, dude. That's really cool.
That's amazing.
We got to see the Bill Clinton Presidential Library. Went to go there.
Okay.
Had
you
dinner.
Actually went in it?
I went in it. Had dinner. It contributed to the Clinton Foundation.
Okay.
I guess when we had dinner there, but I did have to say the smoked salmon salad was absolutely delicious.
Okay.
And her salad was pretty good too, but mine was better.
Right.
They didn't need the help. They found out that U.S. aid has already given the Clinton Foundation between $2 and $5 billion.
Yeah, there's a lot of money there. And I could tell how much money that building took.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite impressive. Matter of fact, we have some pictures we took of a complete replication of what the Oval Office looked like during Bill Clinton's presidency. So they've got an area where it's literally like you're in the Oval Office. So you could take pictures behind the desk, signing some. So we have some pictures of me signing something, and she's on the phone next to me, and vice versa.
That's
so
fun.
It worked. I had never been to a presidential library. So it was interesting to see what that was all about. And it was quite impressive seeing his rise from where he came from in Arkansas, and kind of the things that influenced him in his younger life and propelled him to be governor of Arkansas and all that. And
now, did they have a list of all the assassinations that him and his people, of all the pregnant women that died by suicide, taps to the back of it? They don't list all that stuff?
Nothing like that. It was all his good thing. But the only thing of the Monica Lewinsky stuff was some, unless I missed that part, because there's just so much information there about how he apologized about embarrassing and denigrating the office and blah, 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 blah. So I don't recall much about it. But they had some pictures of when the whole presidential library opened, and they had Bush Sr. and Bush Jr. there. And
when did it open?
They had Ford there at the time. And Jimmy Carter was there. So, So I think it opened back up in the early 2000s.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, if I recall. But it's an impressive place.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, check it out and just see a U.S. president's presidential library. But that was my first time actually being to one. So
I hate to say it. I think I'd rather see anything but that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people feel that way. But, Ian, I think I think this was your topic. So,
what's the topic for today?
I've been stumbling across a lot of things, and like the algorithm has been like pushing a bunch of videos and a bunch of articles, a bunch of things to me about quantum computing.
So now, is that quantum computing? Is that where AI takes over and becomes Skynet?
No, that is not what that is.
It's not? It sounds like it'd be a good movie, though.
No, quantum computing, it could potentially get us to that point where AI could become
self-aware?
AGI, which is what, not self-aware, but is artificial general intelligence enough that it could potentially take over a lot of things and, put us in a really different space. But, yes, I've been watching a couple of videos from people that, of course, have kind of dumbed this down really And I've been reading some things on it because it's really interesting, and it's what I think is going to be the next big thing that really pushes technology forward. I've talked about recently about how AI kind of feels like it's at like a little bit of a plateau right now, where like I think it is increasing, but it's much. We've hit like what do you call it whenever the law of diminishing returns? Like in the initial stages a couple of years ago, like the advancements in AI were I mean like doubling and tripling itself, and now I feel like we're getting that point where it's kind of slowing down a little bit. And I think this is that next thing that's going to really just like kind of blow that ceiling up and make everything, try and increase to that capacity. So,
well, I know they made a big jump with Willow.
Yeah.
I was reading something about Willow that I believe it was Google that created the Willow chip, and
that's the big thing that started a lot of this
right.
discussion for me. Was
Matter
the
of fact, it's Elon Musk has talked about state of the art quantum computing chip, and just for our listeners out there, what kind of differentiates a quantum computer from a traditional digital based kind of system? I mean, it's how it kind of uses quantum mechanics, and none of us here are experts or much about what quantum mechanics are, but I know I've kind of researched a little bit about kind of some of its kind of underpinnings, and how you would have to kind of know how a traditional computer takes data and works. I mean, we all know everything's at ones and zeros, right? That's how kind of the digital world works, and basically it's got to wait till it reaches one, it does something, goes to zero, does something, and just kind of goes back and forth, if I understand it right.
Classical computers use those things, those ones and zeros that are everything is.
It's like all data, that's a piece of data.
All data is made up of ones and zeros. Either it's a yes or a no, and like an electrical current. So no being off, or zero being off, one being on, and so like that's how data is stored, and they're called bits. That's why whenever you have like a 32-bit operating system, 64-bit operating system, like that, there's like a baseline of how many bits that it can use to like calculate data and all that kind of stuff. And it says that quantum computers use what are called quantum bits or qubits.
Qubits, right.
And which can exist in multiple states simultaneously thanks to something called superposition.
Right.
So it can be, this is where for me, I don't understand how this happens, but it can be both simultaneously a 1 and a 0 at the same time.
Right. I saw something, some of the videos I saw on people trying to explain kind of the underpinnings of quantum mechanics and how this works is sort of like a quarter. You flip it in the air.
Yeah.
Now, there is a point in time where it's both heads and tails. Versus when it hits the ground, it's either going to be heads or tails, whereas while it's still in the air flipping around, you could say it's both.
Yeah.
And I think that's where...
Another thing that, another like analogy that was used that helped me kind of see this a lot better is imagine a maze, and then you have a bunch of mice, and the mice all kind of share a collective memory. So whenever but you can only send one mouse in at a time. So you send one in, he finds a path, it's a dead end. You send the second one in, he knows that's the wrong path, so he takes a different path.
Right.
So each one of the mice has to take a different path until they eventually find the exit.
And then it's mapped out.
It's mapped out. Whereas a quantum computer can send all the mice in at once and can all find the
correct.
And that's how it all maps it out. Which is when
so
I saw it like that, I was like, okay,
all of the theoretical possibilities between 1 and 0, whereas the typical computer has to kind of do one or the other, and thus that's what takes the time for it to collate data and do stuff.
And I think I talk about it some more later. We can get into it, but like that's also even though that the classical system is slower, it is more concrete because of the way in which it's like I think foundationally created, and we've also been improving upon it year after year. So like the failure rate of this hypothetical mouse in a maze scenario is usually always pretty accurate. So like the bits don't really lie. They're pretty true that like it either is or it isn't, and then of course they can figure out the correct path from there. Whereas right now I think there's a big failure rate. I think like the problem with quantum computing is that like we're not to a point where it's like as solid as like the classical computers are. So there is like a big failure rate of like I think qubits right now, which I think that's what like Willow and I think Google has kind of done, has had that failure rate of qubits has been
well. What
minimized.
They have to do is they have to control for a lot of variables.
Right.
Unfortunately, some of the challenges. There's a lot of things that have to be just perfect. Like the state has to be near zero. You've got to, irradiation can enter in there, it can mess things up, and that's kind of the challenge with quantum mechanics, and that's why I don't think it's probably made the advancements because they haven't found a way to kind of control those variables to such a degree where I can basically set those wavelengths where they're always going to be uniform. Right. Anything can kind of jack with those relationships there, and if it does, then it throws the whole thing off.
Right. Which I think is, for me at least, I think it's understandable that like with something as so new and groundbreaking as this, that I feel like hey, the classical system works as well as it does because it's probably been the way it has been for 100 years.
They've perfected it.
Yeah.
Just like anything, just like they perfected analog systems prior to that. It's just going to get to a point where we develop the technology where we can control those variables, and then once you can kind of lock in those variables, now you've kind of cracked the code, so to speak, and now it's almost unlimited in what it can do. As far as some of the applications I've seen about just the amount of data that can be. I think we mentioned in one of our last podcasts about they just created something where it solved a calculation that would have taken billions of years, and it took care of it in a few minutes.
Well, they came up with a new jet engine in 2 weeks using AI and some quantum style computers.
Right.
And it works. But one of the things I find really funny looking at it is the same thing that has affected computing always is affecting this one. And this is just keeping it cool.
Yep.
I remember that when the 386 first came out,
right?
Then the 486 came out. We took an old 386, which is what they still somewhat use in satellites because it's a proven type board. And we turned it on its side and took a little tin cup and had a nitrogen drip on it to keep the cooling, the little, what do you call the little metal piece, the heat sink. And we overclocked it to a 1.4 gig. That was a 386. Yeah. Because we were able to keep the cooling down. I wonder what it takes to cool one of these.
Oh, it's a lot.
Massive computers.
Well, it said to control for the temperature, because it needs to be at literally absolute zero. Which I think is minus 440 something
crazy
degrees
and
below
one of the
zero.
reasons that it has to do that is in the computing process there can't be a fluctuation.
Correct.
In the even the minuscule fluctuation can affect the computing, and I think that's kind of fascinating in itself.
Yeah, most people that are going to look at quantum mechanics is kind of one of those areas that, that's the next frontier. Oh. And that's the next frontier. And I believe we're getting close. I think we're a lot closer.
Yeah.
I think AI will definitely speed that on. I believe we're probably a lot closer than probably what we give ourselves credit for. I'm reading a deal here, just kind of open source stuff on the internet here. It basically says, why did NASA stop quantum quantum computing. It said, according to reports, NASA did not completely stop quantum computing, but rather paused a specific project due to concerns about the unexpected and potentially uncontrollable power of the quantum computer, which produced results that were difficult to interpret and raised worries about potential unintended consequences, including the possibility of entering an unknown realm of computation or interacting with extraterrestrial intelligence. Essentially, the technology was deemed too advanced and unpredictable for our current understanding.
Right now,
which at the
one
time
of the
it probably
biggest
was.
things they're finding, the biggest problem is our programming skills aren't to that level yet.
Right.
Our simple programming, what we can program and come up with, can't even come close to what quantum computing can accomplish or do or even process.
Yeah, we as I'm saying, we don't know. I think it's, here we are once again. You start pushing the boundaries of where tech and look, I'm gonna tell you, this really opens up the possibility of parallel universes. There's a lot of things that you could be tapping into that you're like, well, if something can exist simultaneously at the same time in two different places,
right?
Wow, how does that affect? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's the closest we'll come to teleportation. Whereas in science fiction, it's matter, and it's matter being teleported. In quantum mechanics, it's something different.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think that from what I've learned, a little bit of quantum mechanics is that if I don't know how they observe this, but you can change. I don't even know how to get into it. Something can happen or change here on Earth, but but they can observe that it has the same change out in space or whatever.
Right, I think I saw an example that if they did something here on Earth, if you had the same exact thing in a galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy, it would be the same thing happening at the same time.
Right, because all of it is somehow quantumly entangled or something.
Exactly,
like that. Which, again,
quantum entanglement.
That's where I'm getting into.
Everybody go read about quantum entanglement.
Please.
Maybe y'all can understand it better than I could. But
so can I talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely.
There's a superposition, and it says, well, let me see how I want to talk about this. Because of the fact that it can be both ones and zeros, that's considered a superposition, that's how I think it's going to lead to this, mass expanse of computing power that it can work with. But the entanglement side, it says, meaning the state of one qubit is directly related to the state of another, even across vast distances. The phenomenon is essential for quantum communication and can lead to ultra-secure communication networks. And this is where, for me, once we get into the entanglement side, that I'm like, this is where we start getting at almost sci-fi stuff, where it's like we just talked about, how you can affect a qubit here and a qubit somewhere far, far away is also having the same changes being done to it, which that's, like I said, that's kind of mind-breaking as to what that.
One of the things that kind of worries me, and you're kind of touching on it right there, is that it will be able to do that. But right now, you only have a couple of types of programming, C++, you got this, you got that. But with quantum computing, if there is not somebody or a group of people or something that's going to standardize it, how many different directions are they going to be able to go?
I wrote down some things about that, because a big thing of that, a big concern and worry about that is the fact that it could break current cryptography stuff, where it's there's a big potential threat to any kind of existing encryption standards right now, like RSA, and
it breaks all that and very quickly.
The implications for cybersecurity of being able to just brute force your way into anything is some Pretty
Does
crazy
anybody
stuff.
remember the movie Sneakers?
I do not.
Sneakers?
Sneakers.
I don't think
this
so.
needs to go on your podcast. Right. Y'all need to see it's Sneakers. It had Sidney Poitier, Robert Redford, and a very young what's the Phoenix?
Joaquin Phoenix.
Crap, what's his name? I can't remember.
Yeah,
but it's about this subject.
Mm-hmm.
Someone developed something that is a super code breaker. And it's, all the governments want it and everything. It's a great little movie, but it talks exactly about this. And once you have that ability, what are the possibilities? If you can break any code on the planet, what could you do with it?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And trust me, it would be used by people to do bad things.
Oh, of
It's
course.
like anything. It would be snatched by, governments and everything else. So, I mean, it's just what it is. Just let our listeners know the father of quantum computing is David Deutsch. He's a theoretical physicist at the University of Oxford. And he says in 1985, he published a paper that established the quantum theory of computation. He proposed the first universal quantum Turing machine. Well, we all know Alan Turing was the one who was the father of what our modern computers are. His work led to the development of quantum algorithms, including Deutsch's algorithm in 1985.
I have a couple algorithms I want to talk about too.
So,
the River Phoenix.
Okay,
that was his name. I'm sorry, just popped in.
Hey,
River Phoenix.
I got you.
When it pops in, I gotta say it before I lose it again.
Talk about algorithms and tying it back into the whole decryption thing. There's something called Shor's algorithm. And it said that Shor's algorithm could potentially break widely used encryption systems by factoring large numbers exponentially faster than classical algorithms, meaning that like the classical algorithms that we have that try to like break their way through encryption, it can't factor in those large numbers that quickly, whereas this Shor's algorithm can compute those large numbers exponentially quicker, which could be a problem. And then there's another one called Grover's algorithm, which can search unsorted databases much more efficiently, which could have applications in fields like machine learning and optimization, stuff like that, which is interesting.
One of the things they were talking about is logistics.
Yeah.
Think about Amazon with quantum computing on getting all their crap where they need it to go. Then you start putting in the drones and everything else. What is that going to do for airlines?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Buses, things like that. We're having a big thing right now about the air traffic controllers.
Oh, yeah.
Will we need those anymore?
I have some written down for pharmaceuticals and material sciences.
Making drugs. I saw that too.
Quantum computers could simulate molecular interactions between things,
exactly,
using
especially in medicine and stuff like that.
I think it could be crazy because I think it could help a lot of drug discoveries and
they can like that, the quantum, because of the amount of data it can basically crunch. It's stuff that would have taken a long time to be able to see those patterns. Now you can see those patterns very quickly.
Oh yeah. A bigger thing too is financial stuff. I think that I could be wrong, and this is not any kind of advice. This is not any kind of insight. I don't know that, but like once you have a quantum computer that can think so fast and can process so much information, like I think it's going to get really good at predicting what's kind of like immediately like next going to happen. You know what I mean? Maybe not in the long term, but I think if you give, for instance, we talked about AI. I think if you give AI some sort of quantum computing ability, I think that it can tackle complex optimization problems. And I think it could really, this is where I start to get a little bit worried about it, because I think it could, I think how do you, like the variance, like the human variance and like the wonder about like how do you I think it takes away some of the guesswork about what's going to happen. You know what I mean? If you have a computer that's going to pretty confidently predict what's going to happen right in front of you. So,
well, what you're saying is you have 20 cars at a stoplight.
Right.
And the light turns green. The first car takes a second to go.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the second car takes that second and another second behind it.
Right.
What happens if all these cars were to move exactly at the same time?
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And so when you're talking about, encryption and things like that, you have a 20 number letter symbol code.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of what it basically does is it goes, this is 1. Then it goes, this is 0, 1. Then this is 1, 1. And instead of having to go through the whole process, it does it automatically all at the same time. Right. Because now they are all intertwined. That's what's fascinating about it. But what happened? Does that mean self-driving cars and planes and everything now are going to be safer?
I think
and harder to actually hack.
Maybe. But I think the implications that I'm kind of talking about is like is this kind of more numbers based thing, like the database stuff, the encryption stuff, the things that are more, I don't want to say tangible because it all feels like it's extraordinary, but like like I was saying before, I think that there's an unknown about. I don't know how to word. I didn't write this down, but like there's like an unknown like human factor that goes into it. But I think given enough information, I think a computer could reliably guess what the financial market's going to be the next week. You know,
but that's what I'm saying. I was trying to break it down in a simple term. You could basically remove the human factor.
That's what I'm saying, right?
And that's where I was kind of just using a maybe too basic of an analogy.
Right. It removes any biases that
it removes any bias. It completely removes the human equation.
And what I was trying to get across was like, what is that? What are the implications of that? Of like, even though like we have humans that are like making this whole thing happen, and like the difficulty of the stock market is the fact that it's kind of like it shapes and changes and moves based on all kinds of different factors, and no one really can predict it. But like, now there's always going to be a human element that could probably ruin that. But like,
of course,
if you have some sort of computer that could reasonably say like, well, you may want to. I don't know what that, like I said, the implications for what it just, for me, it kind of turns a lot of things up on its head of like, how are we gonna, and I think I'm just using the financial market as a potential because it feels like something that is very, for me, something I don't fully understand. I know it's very, can be very volatile and very stuff like that. Anyways, so, but I think as we talked about before, some of the challenges that were kind of talked about is decoherence and noise. I think of those things I was talking about before. The systems are extremely fragile right now. Qubits are easily disturbed by their environment, like I think you mentioned earlier, and I kind of wrote down some things here. It says it causing loss of information or decoherence,
right?
And the technical challenges involved with maintaining the stability of all that in a quantum system is difficult and is very power consuming, and I wonder what that could look like in the future too, as far as like power stuff and how all that
it's
could
not
work
just
out.
It leads to errors.
Yeah, right.
So if you don't have, we were saying about the temperature, just minuscule things. If you're not near zero, I think I read that too somewhere, that it has to be absolute zero. Well, how now? Okay, now you're going to have another supercomputer to check the computer, That's
where I think the tech and how you, in essence, compartmentalize those variances.
Yeah.
To me, the best way I can try to describe it is if I can compartmentalize that within a some sort of chip or some other way, then that would be the breakthrough. Is once I've compartmentalized and made it very inexpensive to compartmentalize those variables, then that's where I think the big advantages will. So I kind of liken it to the way right now we're dealing with transistors and Moore's law.
Yeah,
we're piling more and more transistors on a chip.
Yeah,
and basically Moore's law is basically has enabled us to kind of maximize what we can do with a computer chip. Well,
right.
I think the same thing with a quantum chip. Instead of transistors, it's going to be compartmentalizing or minimizing those factors that to keep everything in a rhythm.
Oh yeah.
For lack of a better term, where we can take advantage of what the quantum mechanics enables us to do. And
right.
I think once you do that, then you pair that then with the artificial intelligence.
Right.
And now you're getting into being able to really quantify enormous amounts of data.
Yeah. That's the hard part about it is the scalability of it all, of how do you how do you manage such a complex system of thousands or millions of qubits that are
a quadrillion qubits. It's not even millions is less than a millisecond
I would
now.
venture to say within probably the next 50 years, you'll probably see that probably mastered. I mean, think about how far we've come with digital.
Yeah.
Since really World War II. 50 to 80 years.
Yep.
I could definitely see 50 to 80 years in the future from now. So we're looking at probably about the time we get to the 22nd century, that we've probably mastered that. And that is now basically as prevalent, that we see our current computers, where everybody has one. It's built into your phone.
So back in, I think it's 2019, Google did a quantum. Google's had a quantum supremacy thing they were trying to
I think they're still in the supreme lead right now.
Right, right. It says that Google claimed to have achieved quantum supremacy in 2019 with their 32 qubit. I almost said bit. 30. Sorry. Gosh, I'm stuck on the old way of talking about it. 53 qubit quantum computer. Pardon me. The achievement, I think, is debated by many people, but it's important. This milestone, I think, is really important because it demonstrates the potential of quantum computing, with something so big and so large scale like that, like Google. And just to clarify, I don't think that quantum supremacy, it doesn't mean that quantum computers are ready to replace classical computers, but it signifies that their potential to solve problems that classical computers can't is.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they do have right now. They're experimenting with a hybrid quantum classical computer system where they're using both, and that may be the bridge to the next step.
That's what I'm saying. I think when I say 50 to 80 years, I'm talking about to a point where quantum computing is as normal and as plentiful and as scalable as what our digital computers are today. Where in essence, quantum computing would be built into whatever the equivalent of a smartphone will be at that time, 50 to 80 years from now. We may get there faster. I think we'll have working prototypes. It won't be in the hands of everyday people, but you will have those kind of computers being utilized somewhat on a large scale.
And the thing that worries me is that
at universities and stuff like that.
The thing that worries me is that who all gets access to something like this, because I think there's a real ethical dilemma with this whole situation as well, not only impacting your personal security, but potentially breaking encryption like we talked about earlier, how this can affect the balance of power between cybersecurity and global security, and what all does that mean, and the implications get really scary, because I know how humans are, and they want their own agendas to get like pushed. They have
Absolutely.
their own and so I worry that like if just Google has it, or if just the United States government, or if a foreign government has sole power over this thing, or I don't know how that would work, if qubits are the same thing in different spaces. Like I don't know like how much like the human interference can
you can
impact
rest assured that probably our governmental agencies, especially DoD, probably has a working quantum computer.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
But that's what I'm talking about. It's
and
like
I even think after y'all were talking about like the little NASA thing, I'd be willing to bet they really didn't stop it.
Of course not.
No.
I'd be willing to bet
they probably stopped whatever they were currently working on, and then they were like, "Well, this is going to be."
It becomes a black project.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's stuffed in some other.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they can't, while the DOD has failed like 7 different audits, can't account for all their money.
Well, it's like when right before the accident, when I got the new eyeballs put in, and I had these new toric lenses put in, basically. And I asked the guy jokingly, you know, because I'm a long-range shooter, a sniper, and I have that training. And I says, well, if I could get these and we're paying $3,500 so I can still shoot, 1,000 yards, how much would it cost me to shoot 2,500 yards? And he goes, oh, you're funny. There's nothing out there like that. And he says, but if you wait 15 years, that technology will probably be there. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him and I said, bullshit. And I said, if I can get that technology in 10 to 15 years, that means that some MFer's walking around with it right now.
Exactly.
And he rolled his eyes and says, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, see, so.
It's yeah, I mean, you have to check. I've been, that's, I think one of the things that quantum mechanics and quantum computing can be used is it's going to be material sciences and
Mm-hmm.
how different things are built.
Yeah.
As I said, we don't really know kind of how. I mean, it's just the idea of are you kind of punching a hole in reality, so to speak,
the Matrix,
and you're now getting into the idea of simultaneous universes, and that I know that's kind of weird, and people listening to this would be kind of like, oh, Jason, you're getting kind of off on the deep end here, and Star Trek and all these other things. But I mean, no, I mean the reality is at the quantum level, the idea of parallel realities exist.
Yeah,
that's ultra dimensions or even time travel. Think about this: if something can exist in 2 points at the same time, well, how about this point and this point, or this point and
because that's what I'm saying. Quantum,
this point and this point,
right? Because quantum mechanics can be, in essence, it explores all the possibilities. That's kind of what makes it what it does, and then that's kind of like the coin spinning in the air before it hits the ground, before it's either heads or tail. It could be both at the same time.
Yeah.
So you kind of project that out in how data is. Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, it could have unintended consequences, or it could produce discoveries we're not even thinking of right now.
Right.
And that's where I think the idea of...
We're not even ready for this. We're not developing this. They're getting all this crap off of the Roswell crash and that spaceship that they got, the CD, all of this stuff is coming from that spaceship they got back in the Roswell crash.
The interesting
and I say
thing,
that jokingly.
I know. But there are people out there who believe that.
That's why
I stopped that, because I'm like, that's not true. I think that, again, we can get to a point where we're working off of this like quantum computing framework, like whenever we establish systems and all that kind of stuff. Like I know right now we are at this kind of like, in reference to quantum computing, this kind of like primitive classical computing thing. And so it feels like this larger than life thing, because we're still kind of stuck in I don't want to say stuck, but we're still operating with what we currently have. But just like with technology in the past, whenever you start having these new breakthroughs and things like that, it breaks the current system down, it changes things, it shakes it all up, and then of course usually new framework is built around this new thing. And I think that's what's going to probably happen with this is that and it's not, and I think it's going to come with growing pains and with frustrations and scary security implications. But like once the classical computing framework gets kind of like broken down and shaken out, and we have like new things that kind of work around quantum computing, I think even in like a decade from now, we could be talking a different tune from, because there's theories of like we can have like a quantum internet, which is like a concept that like, the whole internet framework can be like simultaneously communicating, instantly, which is it's crazy that like we feel that way now with like the current internet, but like, it's not actually immediate. It's not actually, and the fact that like, having like a new encryption system or a new security means built upon like a quantum computing framework to where like now we could have even better encryption than ever before potentially. Like, so there's like, there's a lot of things that could be kind of scary about it, but there's also like the potential in the future that like we could have like things that are better than it ever has been before, but it's not going to be without,
Well, even if as advanced as computers are now, there's still no true multitasking.
Right.
There's still this is going to be the ability for multitasking, being able to do a billion, trillion things
almost an
all at the same time. And what I'm really sad about that is the one accomplishment that sleepy Joe Biden has was that he was the first person to actually be able to multitask. Because he could walk up a plane steps, shit on himself, and fall down the steps all at the same time. But now this computer is going to take away his one claim to fame. And that really upsets me because that was the only good thing he accomplished was being the first person or entity to be able to multitask. And quantum computing is going to take that away from him.
Well...
I got to get it in there.
Yeah, that's so funny you bring up Joe Biden and all this stuff. I mean, it's so funny, kind of harking back to what I was talking about when I went to the presidential library. Guess what? One of the things with Al Gore, and we all remember the father.
He invented the internet, right?
So maybe we're in a different time, and the technology will be used for good, but we all know in our experience it'll probably be used for bad too.
Yep.
Well, one of the things though, when you think about it, for it to really work, there's going to have to be a lot of things that come together.
Mm-hmm.
Google's not going to be able to do it by themselves. IBM is not going to be able to do it by themselves. To create it, to control it, maximize it, a lot of things are going to have to come together. What if this is the one thing that kind of pulls things and people together? Is that a possibility?
And that's what I kind of was mentioning earlier was the fact that like I think it could, but then that's the scary part is that I know how humans are, and I know how humans want to be able to own.
Mm-hmm.
Like with AI, everyone has their own AI system. Everyone wants to try and get their piece of the cake. Everyone wants to try to, chip in and get their own slice of it and, capitalize on their stuff. So like, that's what I was saying is like, maybe.
Well, the only thing that's going to change, you would have to, society would have to be completely rearranged
right.
to do away with the idea of this company or that company. Because right now, the best mechanism we have to kind of drive some of its innovation is the profit motive. So something would have to happen in society where no longer the profit is motivating people. There would have to be some other carrot dangling out there to provide the impetus for the best and brightest to engage in any sort of endeavor that's going to kind of push the boundaries of what we do.
Right.
So I don't know when that would happen, whether we would have to experience some sort of, our own Fermi paradox
right.
type event where society would just have to be completely reimagined. We've talked about it. I said the only thing that was really going to ever reunite us as human beings, it would have to be some other threat from outside that would make people put aside that kind of tribal thinking that's kind of endemic to our natures, where we're no longer this or that. We're human.
Yep.
Because there's something out there that's not human that has now made contact with us. And who knows? Maybe one of the inadvertent side effects, if you want to call it that, or an inadvertent discovery, is this idea of parallel universes and the idea that, who knows, just like I mentioned earlier with NASA, that this could introduce us to extraterrestrial technology.
Right.
And maybe this is what they're waiting for, is for us to reach that level where now we're interacting with them on a dimensional level, which I find funny because a few people that I've talked to, they have talked about extraterrestrial technology, extraterrestrial beings. They mention that they're dimensional.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe there is a cross there that once we kind of cross that boundary, now they're finally, okay, I can talk to you.
Yeah.
We have a language now we can understand.
Someone had told me, I had a discussion about this recently because I was also curious about that as well. We're talking about, communicating with other life forms and things like that. And we were talking about that. I forgot. I'm not sure if it's the Fermi paradox or what was it that I think it's a theory that we don't have the technology advanced enough to be able to communicate with them at all. So,
correct.
So if you, for instance, to kind of put it in human terms, if you were to go back to like the Renaissance period and try and send out radio waves, nobody would be able to hear you.
We wouldn't even have a concept because they would have no mechanism to be able to even understand that.
Is there some sort of higher extraterrestrial
noise that's already coming down
that
here?
Is coming here, that is around, that is interfering.
We just don't know.
We just can't tap into it like we could.
Right.
That comes into the dimensional stuff that Jason was talking about earlier. We could be talking to ourselves and we just don't know it yet.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I found it funny because I remember listening to a former, some of these people, these whistleblowers now that are coming out, and they talk about this extraterrestrial technology in a dimensional concept. So what is it going to take for us to be able to kind of bridge that to get to a point where our machines, our ability to tap into some of this stuff to allow us to be able to, okay, now we're hearing something. And so I just thought that was interesting to bring that up, that, all this stuff seems to be coming together at now kind of one time. Who knows? We might be on the verge of a breakthrough here, whether that's good or bad.
Oh yeah.
But
like Ian said, that might help us just determine that something's been talking to us for
for
200 years, and we just don't know it because
right.
they have all these signals coming in from space, and even with technology, NASA's going, "Hey, that's something."
Right.
We just don't know what it is, but that's something.
Yes, I do, and that's so funny. It just really hitting me about this dimensional aspect of some of this supposedly tech they have recovered.
We talked about that in one of our earlier episodes. What happens if aliens were to land on the White House lawn? Talking about that aliens may not be from another planet. What if they're dimensional?
Exactly.
What if, and here we go, what if the power that pushes all of that is the mental? How did we say that? What if it was, oh, shoot.
I think it was willpower, emotional, like that kind of there's a lot. there's a lot of power inside the human mind and the brain that I think that like
they'll
talk
say
about,
we only tap in like 10% of our brain or something along those lines. I think I think one of the
sorry, it was consciousness based.
Conscious based. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. I was talking about like it's all kind of. Anyway,
which is the true quantum computing is our heads.
So.
Right, it's consciousness. I mean, there's some people that supposedly they're substances that enable you to kind of go into altered states of consciousness, and supposedly they're able to interact with these beings or whatever the case may be. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But we may be ended up as a inadvertent part of pushing these boundaries of what we consider as dimensions. Who knows? We may break the barrier, and now we're able to see these beings or to interact with these beings in a way that we never would have thought. I mean, all these technologies always inadvertently create something we're not even
prepared for.
We're not prepared for, or we were never even thinking of when we were going down this road. So, who knows whether this happens or not? It may or may not. But
to kind of round this out the same way we started, quantum computing, I think, could potentially enhance AI systems, and by handling like immense data sets and complex computative stuff like that, I think it could really reach something like much bigger, like I was talking about before, just like at the top of the episode. Like I do think that like a lot of times technology raises the ceiling, and then we fill that gap with this framework like I was talking about. AI was this kind of like breakthrough technology, and we're kind of like slowly filling that gap now. We're like we now have all these like AI things and all these stuff, and it feels like it's so, I feel like, gosh, I knew this was happening. Media is so oversaturated with AI art and music, and it is so egregious and gross. It's everywhere now. I can't get away from it, how much AI art and music is made.
Two pages out of the...
I know. So that's what I'm saying. So like, so I think that like, if quantum computing and these AI systems are to be like the kind of the future, I think that we're like, quantum computing is going to raise that ceiling even more, and then I think we're going to see the breaking down and restructuring of a lot of stuff.
Well, I like how you said that, because I was researching, could quantum AI ever become uncontrollable? And theoretically, if you combine them, something could happen. Okay. And, it learns to improve at a rate beyond human control.
Exactly.
Predicts human behavior with extreme accuracy, which kind of bothers me a little bit.
Well, I was talking about that with the whole financial thing.
With the whole financial thing. But what if you're born and it starts looking at all of the stimuli in and around your life and says, you're going to be a murderer, boom, you're done. Or, whatever. And then it becomes deeply integrated into a global network.
Right.
Well, how does that lead toward all of this one world government and everything else?
And that's the implications I was talking about with it removes that variance, or it could potentially it removes the question of like
predictive analytics.
But here's the thing:
is really through the roof.
However, quantum computing does not inherently create AGI or self-awareness. It only makes AI computations faster. Now, here's the kicker. The biggest safeguards remain human oversight, ethical AI design, and international regulations.
Right.
Does anyone else see a problem besides me?
That's what I was mentioning before. Ethical regulation, governmental regulation, all these things that are like... All right. It sounds a lot like, it really sounds like it just is up to the discretion of the user.
It is.
Which is okay.
Well, look, as I said, they're, believe me, they're, you don't stop innovation. You just hope.
And that's,
you just hope human wisdom is not too far behind to at least check it to a degree.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact of the matter is it's here. it's going to do nothing but grow. Companies are jumping on this because no one wants to be left behind.
Of course,
it's already been militarized.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it gets to the everyday person,
yep.
All that stuff has been done.
What was that movie? War Games.
Well, I've seen War Games. Yeah.
Have you
Whopper?
seen Whopper? Yeah. That's it. Whopper. Yes, that was a great movie. If you think about for the time and that was really ahead of its time as far as thinking about this kind of stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Would you like to play a chess game? So it is. It's as I said, I think it's the dimensional things that I truly
larger than life.
I think that's
yep.
I think that's what people need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I think is going to be groundbreaking.
I've been trying to keep it very down to earth with some of that, because I do think that the implications that we're going to see are going to be very immediate in like the removing of the current computer framework and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think you're wrong though. That I think that something else out there is going to be happening. This you're gonna stumble on something that you're not planning, that no one's thinking of. Yep.
But it's going to open a gate.
Yep.
And because now we're getting into some real theoretical stuff, but possibility. You start pushing this further and further, then you start piercing the veil, and now, we've always read about the multiverse, right?
Yep, here we are.
So here we are. So,
cool.
But good stuff.
It's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
I think it's going to come with friction, and it's going to come with. It's going to, like I said before, it's going to be hard, and we're probably going to lose valuable data and information, and in the process of breaking down one system to construct a new one. But
right,
I think it's going to be good though.
Yeah,
in the long run.
Well, as I said, I mean, it's I'm not afraid of tech. I've never been one of these people to it's what it is. And then, as I said, I hope that ultimately our tech eventually gets to a point where it actually enhances human life.
Right.
Enhances our living experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do think
may
in the medical
possibly
world,
solve a lot of issues that we have now. Of course, how anything is used,
right?
I mean, it's will have to be governed,
right?
And will have to be rules set up to kind of keep it. But as well as I do, you're not going to stop things like this.
No.
It's just going to happen, and the only thing that's going to stop this stuff is if we encounter our own Fermi paradox.
Right. Well, with that being said, we would love to hear what you guys think about this. I know this is a rather big topic. It could be fun and scary and serious and all the different kinds of things.
I'm glad you kind of said that. I'd love to hear from. Do you think it's going to be fun, or do you think it's going to be scary?
Well, I think.
What are your real thoughts? I mean, when you're hearing this episode and some of the stuff that's kind of in the news and the magazines, what is this really meaning to you?
Yeah,
that's what I want to know. How do you think this is going to affect our day-to-day life?
Right.
Because right now that's what people are really worried about. And then I'll leave you with this thought. What if Doge had access to a quantum computer? How much waste could they find?
They're finding a lot of waste without it. So
can you imagine if they had a quantum computer on their hands?
Yeah. Well, as per usual, you can reach out to us in all the comment sections.
Sorry, guys. I don't mean to interrupt you. I got to stick it in there, Ian.
I got you. It's all good. All the comment sections and all the different platforms that you can reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Subscribe and like where you can. We have an email address, getinfinitetogether@gmail.com.
Still got the website.
Got the website as well.
Retrospectpodcast.com.
Hit us up. We're here. We appreciate you listening. And until next week, bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
Please share us with somebody this week. Let your friends and family know what you're listening to. Even if you don't like it, let them know, because maybe they'll hate us, agree with you, or they'll love us. But let us know what you're thinking too. Thanks for hanging out with us today. You are the best. Peace.